in 1999, my dad he was targeted by the guerrillas, and he had to leave the nation. And he went to the United States. He got political asylum. And one day he asked me, Nico, do you want to come over and study English with me in for 6 months? In that time, my school was Spanish and French. I didn't know a lot of English. Not that I know any French now, because everything I learned I forgot. But at that time, I knew a little bit more French, and I said, "Okay, well, yeah, it's fine. I want to go to the States." To me, the United States was like this place where everything worked, and they had Disneyland. So I wanted to go to Disneyland, and I said yes to my dad. And when I was in at that time, I was 14 years old. So I was very little, and I was a mommy's boy. My mom was very protective of me, and I really had no idea about the world outside. Like I had some ideas, but when I came to live with my dad, I realized two things about my life. First, that my dad was being targeted by the guerrillas, and they targeted me and my other brother. So I had to decide either I wanted to stay in the States and have political asylum, which meant that I couldn't go back to Colombia to live my normal life with my mom. So it was like a harsh rupture between my mom, my household, uh, which I saw as my mom, and to start a whole new life. I went to the United States to learn how to speak English, but then when I was there, my dad showed me all the proof that he was being blackmailed and that I was a target too, and we had to stay there. So at the beginning, it was hard for me to realize that I wasn't coming back to Colombia, particularly because if you have political asylum, you can't go back to the country where you came from for many years.
Ah,
So it was like 10 years. Like I couldn't go visit my grandma. I had two other brothers, little brothers that I couldn't visit. So I had to decide. I was 14 years old. I had to decide either I go back to Colombia and risk my life and the people I love, or stay in the United States and develop a life in the United States and give my family a chance in case the things in Colombia went south really bad. They will have me in the States with a certain trajectory, so that when they had to flee, I was able to sustain them when they came, both my mom and my brother. So, but I was really little, like I was 14 years old, and I saw all this, and I'm like, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay in the States. I'm not gonna risk anybody's life, and that's what I did. And it was tough because I came from a very happy household. My mom was very, outgoing and with a lot of friends. My dad was very serious. Very, he never told me I love, he loved me and things like that. That to me was like a crush. But he was very like, oh, you got to be good at school. You got to be doing this. You got to. So I was trying to gain my dad's love and approval. So I became good at many things. But I was also looking for love. So because I've lost that in my family stayed in Colombia, and I was talking to them like every week, but it wasn't the same. So I had a girlfriend, and I was like 15 years old, and the relationship was a disaster. We broke up, and I was very hit by that relationship, and I got very depressed with suicidal thoughts, and I had no idea what to do with my life because I was very sad. Even though my dad gave me like a really nice house, and I was living like the American dream with the house, with the pool, with the tennis court, but it was very very empty inside. And I remember my uncle Felipe. He came one day and he started talking about Jesus. He's the only Christian in my family,
mhm.
and to me Christianity was so far away because I was a Catholic by I was raised Catholic, but I didn't practice it, and to me that religion itself, I didn't understand it, like how people would pray to these statues and all that. I mean, I I thought that God was an energy, and that if you behave good, the energy will give you good things, and if you uh, behave bad, you will attract bad things. Very new age stuff in my head because of my dad. Also, my dad believed in this new age way of thinking. In fact, in the United States, we went to several churches of New Age, and I was
Mm.
introduced to occultism, and I was learning all this information about how to create your life and how to attract wealth and positivity and all that. And but I didn't buy it 100%. Like I was like, maybe there's some truth in it, but I don't know. There's something that is missing. So my uncle was talking to me in the middle of my depression, and I because I was learning all these other truths, and I'm like, Jesus is I respect Jesus as a master, as a prophet, or a very important person in history, but he's not God. Like I remember thinking that when he was talking to me. My depression worsened, and my mom had to come get me in the United States, and she's like, Nico, you gotta go back to Colombia because you're gonna die here. I don't your eyes, my she saw death in my eyes. She's not a Christian, but she was very worried. And so I
Mm.
went back to Colombia, risking everything. Of course, when I went back to Colombia, I risked the asylum and everything. And I became very outgoing, like, because I was living with my father, who was very strict and very like. And in the United States, as a youngster, you don't have many freedoms. In Colombia, you start drinking when you're 14 years old, and to a young person, that's growing up. Like, you drink, you're a grown up. So I was in the States, I couldn't even buy a beer, and I was like frustrated because I wanted to have fun. So when I came to Colombia, I became the party expert. I was going to parties Monday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day. I was going out. Um, and looking for love, for women, for fun, for adventures. And then I did my high school, some of the high school years here in Colombia. And then I started to realize the contrast between the two societies, the United States and Colombia. And I saw that there was something very wrong in Colombia. I mean, in the States too, but in Colombia you could see it more. Like, people were living their lives for pleasure only. Like the day-to-day pleasures of life. That's it. Like, they didn't have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, nothing like that. Like, people wanted to have a house, a car, and drink every day if possible, and have fun. That's it. Whereas in the United States, I lived there for like 2 years before coming back to Colombia. I could see people, even at my young age, that had a life plan, and that impacted me really deep. Like, people knew what what school they wanted to go, how many years, what kind of jobs they wanted to have, if they wanted to have a business. Like, they were more focused on these things in that era. I don't know now, but those years, young people like me, had more idea on what to do with their lives. And also, in Colombia, people tend to stay in their parents' homes until they have their apartment, or like, it's not only to have a job, but an education, but you have to have like another household or get married, which is not entirely bad. But the thing is, you have people that are 30, 35 years old, even 40 years old, living with their parents. I
Mm.
saw that, and I'm like, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live with my mom for all these years. And I could see that in the United States, you could do very humble jobs, you know, like serving tables, or delivering pizzas, and you could live a nice, decent life. Here, if you do those jobs, you wouldn't have enough to pay the rent. So those differences, I decided, I'm like, if I stay here, I'm gonna become this parasite of the system, and I don't want that. I want to be. I want to have my own freedom. I want to have my own things. I want to have my own not only house but my own means to create my life adventure.